Oh, sweet, we got break. LOL. LOL.
I shall continue to rely on you.
No! No, 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 stop! Stop! Wait, 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 I got an idea. I can salvage this. I can salvage this. Okay, there we go. Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another edition of the Conscast, and today we're going to be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country. And from this moment onwards, I'm just going to be calling it Torna because saying the entirety of the title of this game throughout this video is going to be a pain in the ass. I'm just going to call it Torna from now on, okay? Anyway, when Torna came out earlier in 2018, I was actually busy playing other games, so I just did a quick video telling guys my gameplay impressions of it, and I never really touched the game again, which now looking back was actually really poor decision making on my part because I was actually spending time playing World of Warcraft. Talk about disappointment, am I right, you guys? But anyway, I finally got around to playing Torna, and I played it at the end of 2018 and finally finished it last night, actually. I did the final battle last night. And I gotta be honest, whereas with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, when I finished playing that, I was like, man, what a fantastic ride. I loved just about everything about this world. Sure, I could nitpick a couple of things here and there, but like overall, what a fantastic experience. I gotta be completely honest, with Torna, that's not how I feel. As a matter of fact, you could almost say I was pretty torn on Torna. Now that was such bad worldplay. Never mind, never mind. I was extremely conflicted when I finished playing the game, when I finished the last story beat of it, but I was not conflicted in terms of the story itself, because the story, I loved it. This game tells the story of Jin and Laura, which is incredibly important in the context of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. In terms of visuals, the game is fantastic, just like its predecessor, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like I said back then, the resolution is not its top, is not top notch, but the visuals themselves, the art style, but I think most importantly, the sense of scale that the Xenoblade games are able to convey is something that very few other games can ever even hope to do as well as this fantastic series. This is, again, this is the way that I feel about this. I've played a lot of video games, and whenever I get into a Xenoblade game, it portrays scale like nothing else that I've seen before. But anyway, the scale was great, visuals are great, soundtrack also fantastic. Once again, soundtrack in Xenoblade games, I love it. My favorite is still Xenoblade Chronicles X, despite a lot of people like, oh man, soundtrack in that game sucked, because all you really remember is probably the soundtrack from where you were in the city. You don't remember the soundtrack when you're out exploring, which is friggin' amazing, one of the best soundtracks ever. That game does not get enough recognition. And while we're on the topic of sound, I still felt that Torna had the same issue that the original Xenoblade Chronicles had in terms of ambient sounds, which is sometimes during cutscenes, it feels like it's too quiet. Like you'll be in a forest setting and there will be two characters interacting, and the only sound they will put there is maybe the footsteps of the characters and the voices of the characters, and that's it. Like you got to put birds chirping in the distance, you got to put wind blowing and trees, like none of that on a lot of the cutscenes. None of that actually takes place, which is, in my opinion, a serious problem. But anyways, that is a little bit nitpicky because the sounds themselves overall are good. The soundtrack's fantastic. The voice acting, you can expect the same caliber of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So if you didn't like what you got in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you're not going to like it here. So some voices land, some voices don't land. I'm talking about the English localization naturally, because I played it in English. Obviously, if you go to Japanese, all the Japanese voices are always freaking fantastic because that's just the way that it is. Now, as I've mentioned at the start of the video, the story for this game is fantastic, and there's nothing really that I have to point to the story itself other than there is a little detail a couple of more details that I would have liked to know more specifically about Jin and his relationship with Malos, because as you guys, if you've played through Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then you start playing through Torna, one of the things that you're going to want to figure out is the evolution of Jin's character. How does he get to the point that he was during Torna to the point that he is in Xenoblade Chronicles 2? And even during Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they give you a couple of flashbacks as to what happened that made him become what he is. I wanted more of that. I wanted more of the evolution of the Jin character, and you get a lot of that character before, how should I put it? Before he kind of became spiteful and vengeful and all that stuff. You get the Jin that existed before that, but you don't necessarily get the proper evolution. I felt like I wanted more payoff for that specific character, and I wanted more backstory as to how and when does he become friends with Malos? How does that happen? How does, because basically by the time you finish this game, and I'm not going to give you guys any specific spoilers or anything like that, but by the time you finish this game, you're still going to be wondering, but how, what happened after? There's still a couple of things there that I feel could have been more explored, or maybe it's just because I don't remember it because it's been a long time since I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I actually feel like playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 again after having finished this in New Game Plus. But anyway, as I told you guys, I am extremely conflicted about this game, and the reasons as to why I'm conflicted begin now, because they are very much so gameplay reasons more than story reasons. So in a lot of ways, a lot of people are going to come to me and they're going to ask me, Rurikhan, but is it worth it for me to play through Torna? Is it worth it for me to get Torna or something like that? And my advice is look, I think the season pass is good value as opposed to buying the two things separately. Why? Because the season pass also brings stuff for the original Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I don't know if you, I guess I could have looked this up, but I don't know if you actually buy the physical edition of Torna, if you still get all of the other stuff that you get for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So I think that probably the season pass is the best way to go about it, because you get value in the other game, which in my opinion is better than Torna. But let's get into some more specifics. So they changed the combat system. Now, the combat system Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was something that I greatly enjoyed. I know that there's a lot of people that did not like the combat system, but they changed the combat system significantly. Things are a bit different. So in order for you to understand what I'm going to be talking about next, you need to have a basic understanding of how the combat works in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, there's this thing, which is you got blade combos and driver combos, right? And the way these work is driver combos fulfill these 4 conditions, which is first you got to break an enemy. So certain attacks cause the debuff break. And after that, you have to topple that enemy. Certain attacks have the debuff topple. So if you do topple without having break, nothing happens. But if you do break and then you do topple, then the monster gets toppled. After that, there's another combo that you can follow up, because there's some attacks that will do launch. And after that, there will be a 4th step in that. Some attacks do smash. So basically, a full driver combo would be break, topple, launch, and smash. Okay? Those are driver combos. Then there's blade combos. Now, blade combos involve elemental manipulation. So this depends on the elements of each blade. But basically, you would do a special attack with your blade, and it would be a level 1 special attack, and it would be fire, right? You could follow up that attack in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 with another fire attack. And that would start a special combo. And after that, you would be able to follow up that combo with a 3rd and final attack, which could be, for instance, the power of light. And after you do that, then you would complete the blade combo. So there's driver combos, there's blade combos. And once you would finish the blade combo, the monster you were fighting would get this orb around him. And your objective would then be to, keep doing different combos to give the monster different elemental orbs to then finalize everything with a chain attack that would enable you to destroy the orbs that you've placed on the monster in order to achieve ridiculous amounts of damage. That's kind of the basis of it that, probably only people that have played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 will fully understand this. So basically, the way that they changed this is, for starters, you can swap blades, and you can swap blades into actual combat in Xenoblade in Torna, right? So in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you would only control the driver, and you would be able to switch blades, and that would switch the skills that you would have available to you, but it would always be the driver, the one who would be fighting. In Torna, you switch between the driver and the blade. So the blade actually takes the front lines and fights for you, okay? And the cool thing about that is that actually brings in a bunch of new things, because whenever you swap blades, you get a different set of abilities, but you also get the blade switching ability as well, in which each of the blades and each of the drivers themselves, whenever you would swap them into combat, they would have a part of a driver combo that would be applied. So for instance, when you swap into something, you could apply break. When you swap into something else, you could apply launch. Now, the character that I was actually playing as did not have break. I would have other characters do the break. After that, my character would be able to topple, and then I would be able to swap into a blade, which would do launch, and after that, I'd be able to swap back into my character, which would trigger smash, so I could do full driver combos. So that was really cool. I loved that aspect of it, not to mention the aspect of being able to swap into a blade allowed me to basically just like spam abilities like nobody's business, which was also fantastic. I loved that aspect of the combat. So the blade switching mechanics was really cool, kept things a lot fresher, and it gave me a lot more skills to play with. And on top of that, in this game, you don't actually resonate with blades at all. One of the main things of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was that you would be resonating with blades all over the place. You would defeat a bunch of monsters, you would get blade cores, you would resonate with them, and a lot of times you would get crappy blades, crappy common blades. Nobody wants common blades, okay? Not a single person in the friggin' world wanted common blades in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Everybody wanted to collect the rare blades, which made whenever you resonated with a common blade extremely disappointing. So I was actually happy that they removed blade resonation entirely from the game. I was like, this is cool. You can either do that or just give us rare blades and just get rid of common blades altogether. That would also be great. But sure, you no longer resonate. In this game, you're going to get 3 characters. Each of the characters has 2 blades. That's it. No more blades in there. And you guys are like, oh, but how do you swap elements and stuff? You exchange the main weapon of your driver, and that swaps the element that your driver uses. Okay, that's how that works. So that you do have a little bit of flexibility in terms of which elements you are using and how you're going to apply that into combat. Now, the thing about that, you no longer resonating with blades, meant that you're going to be using only the blades that are provided to you, and you might think, well, that limits combat a little bit, but like I said, the ability between the blade switching and applying driver combos that way, and the amount of stuff that you can do, basically makes it so that the combat does not feel bad. But then comes the serious problem that I have with it. Now, I told you guys that in order for you to get an orb onto a monster, you have to do this long chain combo with the blade, and it had to be in a certain order and made in a certain way. Well, in Torna, they're just like, nah, dude, any special attack that you do applies an orb, and you're like, isn't that a little bit too much? No, that's just how it works. And also, by the way, you know the thing that you were doing in order, like you had to do fire, fire, light? Yeah, forget all that. I mean, you can do that still if you want, and you will get rewarded for doing, but you can just do like fire 1, wind 2, ice 3, done. And I was just like, that doesn't feel as satisfying. Because that was one of the things that felt really good to me when I was doing the combat of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, was like how deep you could get into that system and how you planned each of the combos in order to achieve, you know, getting all of those orbs onto an enemy. That it felt good to actually master that system. And I guess that probably a lot of people didn't like it or whatever, because it's like, nah, dude, you don't have to master it anymore. Like any friggin' special attack will, boom, instantly pop an orb onto the enemy, and you can complete combos with whatever element you want. And essentially what that did was, like, I wanted to do the named combos, but there's no reference to them in the game. So you would have to kind of like experiment and try to discover all of them. Whereas in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you would have like something that would tell you, okay, if you want to do a proper combo, on the next one you have to go dark or light, or you have to go fire or ice. or, you know, something like that, right? They would tell you the next elements that you would have to do. In this one, no. It's just like you have to pray that the proper blade to continue the combo that you want gets swapped in by one of the AIs. And you guys know how that works. It never works the way that you want. Whenever you want an AI to do something, they never do the one thing that you want. Which, I don't know, I've probably relied on the same 4 or 5 named combos whenever I wanted to do named combos. And it felt like it wasn't as rewarding. It also felt like it cheapened the whole system with you being able to just apply 1,000 orbs onto the enemy. Just like, hey, psh, fire orb, lightning orb, light orbs. Like, psh, here's some orbs. Have some orbs, you know? And I was just like, I don't know. It felt weird. So I don't like the fact that the blade combos were overly simplified where you can just complete a combo with anything. And I don't like the fact that you could spam orbs like madness, like complete madness. And just get into a chain attack and just have like thousands upon thousands of orbs into the monster. And you're just like, oh, wow, okay. I guess that works. I mean, by the time I got to the final fight, I was able to basically put all of the existing orbs onto the final boss within a matter of like a couple of seconds. I was like, well, do this one, that orb. And I wasn't even paying attention. It didn't even took that much effort. I was just like, as the specials were coming up, I'm like, boop, pop, that special, boop, pop, that special. Sometimes, here's the thing. It gets so hectic that sometimes I would be in the middle of one of those finalizing animations where you would actually be doing a named combo. And I would see special abilities popping up on the other blades. And while I was doing the quick time event, I would also be triggering the other specials because everything was coming in at the same time. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is happening? This doesn't make any sense. And then they do another thing with this, which is I feel that the combat system present in the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 series of games, because I mean there's now 2 of them, but the combat system that they developed for this with the driver combos and the blade combos and all of that stuff, I felt like that system was particularly good for duels. So like where you would be fighting 1, maybe 2 or 3 enemies because you can keep track of the stuff that you're actually doing in combat. And you know, that's where that system really shines because you can decide, okay, I want to apply this thing and I want to do this combo and I want to topple and I want to smash and whatever, right? But when you put like a bunch of weak enemies into a fight, then it's like the system goes from being incredibly deep to you just like mashing every cooldown as it becomes available. And that's one of the things that I felt happen a lot of times. Just like, hey, here's this fight with, I don't know, 5, 6 enemies. As a matter of fact, you would literally have fights that were gauntlets, where you'd just be like, okay, you just have to stand here, and we're going to keep throwing enemies at you, almost Dynasty Warrior style. And it's like, sometimes I would barely even get to see the enemy's health gauge because they would die so fast by just me spamming everything that was available. And I was not over-leveled at all. As a matter of fact, I was under-leveled at certain portions of the game. But it's just like whenever you get into one of these games and you give me like, I don't know, a 5, 6, 7 enemy fight, I already know that it's not going to be a particularly satisfying experience. At least not as satisfying as actually fighting against the boss where you can actually go all out and decide the combos that you're doing and actually, you know, figure out I want to do this combo, then that combo, and then trigger this driver combo into that blade combo. And you know, again, fights with multiple enemies are not very good in this game, and there's a bunch of them. There's way too many of them in my opinion. And then on top of that, you still have another one of the problems that you had in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is a lot of the enemies are too weak for you to actually take full advantage of the blade combo system. And then it's interesting because you go from them being too weak to a point where they instantly become too strong. So like I found myself in a situation where I was like, the previous fight, it had been like complete just me demolishing an enemy. And then I go into the next fight where these enemies have like Elemental Awakening, which is a new mechanic that gets introduced later on. I believe that Elemental Awakening was also present in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I don't remember being as affected by it as in this one. So I'm fighting these enemies, and you start doing the blade combos, and they just friggin' one-shot you. It's like, what? It's not, I don't know, there were like maybe 3 to 4 levels higher than me, and I was like, what the fuck? So basically, these would be fights where you would be actively encouraged not to use blade combos and instead just do driver combos, and I was so confused because the fight just became like mega easy the moment I stopped doing blade combos to prevent the elemental awakening in the enemies, and just it became very unsatisfying to fight some of those enemies. So anyways, again, a complete mixed bag, right? Because like I said at the start, I'm like, man, there's this amazing thing with the blade switching, feels great, adds all of this good stuff to the driver combos and stuff, and more abilities for you to use, and feels fantastic. And then at the same time, it's like, but then there's the orb spamming, which is stupid. And there's the fact that you no longer have to rely on named combos. You can just combo into anything. And then there's this kind of shift in balance where enemies go from being incredibly weak to being ridiculously strong. And I don't know. But then to top everything off is probably what I think is the worst offender in this game, and that is the community system. So in the previous game, you would do this thing where you would be recruiting mercenaries, and then you could send out blades to do different missions, which worked kind of like a mobile game type of thing where you just send out the blades, and like 30 minutes later, they'll come back and they'll bring rewards and stuff for you. And sometimes you would actually have to send the blades to complete certain missions that would be like story, but usually those would be reasonably fast or whatever. But in this game, I really felt that the type of gating that the community feature was doing was really bad. So with the community feature, how it works is whenever you do a side quest in the game, like usually the character that you've completed the side quest from, you'll join your community. And actually having a big community, as far as I can tell, doesn't really do anything in the game. Like there's no tangible benefit for you to have a big community. However, I got to a certain point in the game where it just told me, okay, so in order to proceed from here, you need to get your community to level 2. And I was like, what? So basically the game just told me, go do side quests. I was not happy. Because like, as a matter of fact, I was live streaming, and the way that I was playing the game was like, okay, so I want to do side quests off stream, and then when I'm on stream, I want to do the main quest so that I have something to do when I'm off stream. And this completely threw everything out of whack because, like, well, I guess I got to go do side quests now because the game isn't going to let me do my main quest anymore. And it even got to a point where in preparation, like, I'm already waiting for the game to tell me that I'm going to need a certain community level to continue, right? So as I was expecting that, I was like, okay, so I'm going to get ahead of it and I'm going to just do enough quests to raise my community level one more time. And then I go on to the stream and I start live streaming with my community at like level 3 or whatever. And I kid you not even 5 minutes into the live stream, the game's like, okay, you need your community to go to level 4. And I was like, really? That was so egregious and so poorly timed because like I specifically spent, I don't know, like a good 1-2 hours grinding shit out just to get my community up to level 3 so that I wouldn't have to do it on stream. I get the community up to level 3. I play the game for 5 minutes and it tells me, okay, now you need community level 4. That really pissed me off. I was like, okay, I get it. I understand that Torna is not as big as Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I think I myself clocked in about 24 hours or something like that. I've heard people have completed it in as short as 12 hours, which makes me wonder, what the fuck was I doing wrong? Because I almost feel like I took the critical path because I basically leveled my community up to level 4. So I don't know what I was doing wrong. But either way, it's not as long as Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But to then just artificially extend the time that someone needs to play the game by using this community feature, which, like I said, as far as I'm aware, actually doesn't have any tangible benefits for you in-game to increase the level of your community. It's just another bar that you can kind of fill. It felt cheap, right? It just felt like this artificial gating mechanic that, I don't know, it didn't felt right. It particularly didn't felt right because I have such fond memories of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 not doing any of this that it really struck a chord with me. And then you mix that with the feelings that I got from the combat. And basically the only really thing that saves it is the fact that the combat still had improvements. It's so weird. It's like the combat had improvements, but the combat also was made worse in a lot of ways. And the thing that I really enjoyed, though, was the story. Because the story that is told there, you totally understand what happened to Mithra, how she created Pyra, and all of the steps in between. And you see the evolution in the interaction between these blades. And the story itself is a big payoff. But there's a lot of mechanics in there that could have been handled better. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think about this. Have you played Torna? Let me know in the comment section below if you feel the same way, if you feel differently, if you think I'm off mark. Let me know. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Hit the subscribe button if you guys enjoy my videos. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this one. And I'll see you guys in the next one.